Have you ever wondered what the world looks like from the height of a tiny, twitching nose? Far beyond the busy roads, behind the old mossy stone walls, there is a hidden garden where the sunlight feels warm and soft, like a golden blanket. This is a very special place. A secret world where the big green cabbage leaves reach up to a deep blue sky. Every shadow tells a little story. Every rustle of a leaf is a tiny secret. And the golden dust dances in the air like magic memories from long ago. Today, we are going to follow a very brave, very curious little rabbit on a journey that will take us through sun-dappled paths and hidden burrows. We will walk through the high grass where the dew still clings like diamonds to the blades of green. As the golden dust dances in the air, you will feel your breath slow down. Your heart will find its calmest beat. By the time we reach the end of the garden wall and return to the warmth of the sandbank, you will be wrapped in a blanket of peace, ready for the deepest, most beautiful sleep. Once upon a time, in a place where the air always smells of pine needles, warm earth, and the faint, sweet scent of wild thyme, there were 4 little rabbits. Their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a cosy, sandy bank, nestled deep underneath the roots of a very large, very ancient fir-tree. This tree was a giant of the woods, a sentinel of the forest, with bark as thick as armour, covered in silver moss and velvet green lichen. Its roots twisted like the fingers of a sleeping giant, creating hollows and secret rooms where the family felt safe from the world above. The needles formed a soft, fragrant carpet outside their door, a carpet that muffled every footstep and turned the forest floor into a place of hushed silence. Inside the burrow, the air was still and smelled of dry sand and warm fur. It was a place of perfect safety, lit by the soft amber glow that filtered through the tangled roots. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow of great dignity and grace. She wore a clean white apron and a small lace cap, and her whiskers were always neatly groomed. On this particular morning, the golden sunlight filtered through the tree roots in long, slanted beams, casting dancing shadows of the forest floor across the sandy walls of their home. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit, her voice as soft and comforting as the velvet on her own ears, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but do not go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there. He was put in a pie by Mrs. McGregor many years ago. It is a place of great beauty, but the stakes are high, and the gate is heavy." She reached for Peter, the smallest of the litter, yet the one with the most restless spirit. She pulled out his most prized possession, a totem of his identity, a blue wool jacket. It was made of the finest heavy cloth, dyed the deep, rich colour of a summer sky just before the stars begin to wake. She fastened the brass buttons one by one, and they shone like 5 tiny golden suns against the blue. Click, click, click. The jacket felt warm and substantial against his soft brown fur, a shield of wool against the morning chill. "Run along now," she whispered, leaning down to nuzzle his nose. "And don't get into mischief. I am going out to the baker's to buy a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns for our tea." Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, did exactly as they were told. They went down the lane to gather blackberries, moving with a slow, rhythmic grace. The lane was a peaceful place, lined with ancient hedgerows where the birds sang songs of the morning. They focused on the deep purple berries, each one a tiny cluster of sweetness, cool and damp with the morning dew. They moved from bush to bush, their little baskets swinging gently, their hearts full of the simple joy of the harvest. But Peter felt the weight of the brass buttons on his chest and the thrum of a wild, forbidden curiosity in his paws. He did not look at the blackberries. He did not look at the lane. He looked only toward the heavy iron gate of Mr. McGregor's garden, standing like a sentinel at the edge of the woods. The garden was a world of forbidden emeralds and hidden treasures. Peter squeezed his slender body under the gate, feeling the cold, rusted iron graze the blue wool of his jacket for just a heartbeat before he popped through. Inside, the world was transformed. The air was thick and heavy with the scent of damp earth, crushed mint, and the sharp, peppery aroma of ripening vegetables. It was a paradise for a hungry rabbit. First, he ate some lettuces, their leaves so crisp and cool they felt like ruffled silk against his tongue. Then he ate some French beans, snapping them with a satisfying pop that echoed in the quiet garden. And then he found the radishes, bright, vibrant globes of red hidden beneath the soil. Peter sat among the giant cabbage leaves, which were as large as umbrellas and heavy with the morning's moisture. The sunlight, filtered through the thick green veins of the leaves, turned the entire patch into a shimmering emerald diorama. Thousands of golden dust particles, the lumi dust, danced in the shafts of light that pierced the canopy of green. Peter felt a sense of profound peace, the kind that only comes from a full belly and the warmth of a hidden sun. He watched a ladybug crawl across a leaf, its red shell glowing like a jewel in the chiaroscuro light. But soon, feeling rather sick from the richness of the radishes, he stood up and went to look for some parsley to settle his stomach. The parsley patch was nestled near the greenhouse, where the air was warm and smelled of old terracotta and potting soil. The stems were green and curly, holding droplets of water like tiny crystal beads. Peter nibbled slowly, feeling the fresh herbal taste clear his mind. He looked up at the vast expanse of the garden, the rows of peas stretching out like a green sea, and for a moment he forgot the warnings of his mother. He felt like the king of this secret world, a small blue figure in a vast landscape of gold and green. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? The gardener was on his hands and knees, planting out young cabbages with careful, calloused hands. But at the sight of the blue jacket, he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out in a voice like rolling thunder, "Stop, thief! Stop, thief!" Thump, thump, thump. The sound of Mr. McGregor's heavy leather boots hitting the garden soil was the ticking clock of Peter's adventure. A heavy, metallic rhythm that signalled the end of his peace. Peter was most dreadfully frightened. His heart hammered against the brass buttons of his jacket as he rushed all over the garden, for in his panic he had forgotten the way back to the gate. In his frantic flight, the unthinkable happened. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes, leaving his paws bare against the cold, damp earth. Without his shoes, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, a blur of brown and blue moving through the rows of vegetables. He might have got away altogether if he had not, unfortunately, run into a gooseberry net. The large, shiny brass buttons on his jacket, the very things that made him feel so grand, now became his trap. They caught in the mesh of the net, holding him fast. Peter gave himself up for lost, and shed big, heavy tears that rolled down his whiskers and soaked into the soil. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement, their wings fluttering like 100 tiny fans. They chirped and implored him to exert himself, to find the strength within his small frame to break free. Mr. McGregor approached with a heavy wooden sieve, intending to pop it over Peter like a cage. But Peter, with one final, desperate wriggle, slipped out of his jacket just in time. He left the beautiful blue wool and the golden buttons behind, abandoned in the net as he fled toward the safety of the shadows. He rushed into the dark, cool silence of the potting shed and jumped into a large tin water can. It would have been a beautiful place to hide, a silver sanctuary, if it had not had so much cold water in it. Peter sat there, shivering, his fur matted and wet. The water was icy cold, and the metal walls of the can echoed with every sound. Drip, drip, drip. Outside, he could hear the scrape of a spade. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each one. The air in the can grew heavy and damp, and suddenly Peter could not help it. He sneezed. "Kertissue!" The chase began again with renewed fury. Peter jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 pots of geraniums that shattered on the ground. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor to follow, and the gardener was growing tired of running after such a fast little rabbit. He wiped his brow and went back to his work, grumbling under his breath. Peter sat down in the shade of a large leaf to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with a fright that reached down to his very bones. He had not the least idea which way to go, and he was very damp and uncomfortable from sitting in that can of water. After a long time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all round the garden for a way home. He found a wooden door in a high stone wall, but it was locked tight. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas in her mouth to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, his voice small and trembling. But she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him with a look of quiet pity. Peter began to cry again, his tears falling onto the cold stone. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, through the labyrinth of beans and broccoli. Presently, he came to a quiet pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, like a statue carved from snow. But now and then, the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard stories about cats from his cousin, Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, feeling the weight of the silence around him. But suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the rhythmic noise of a hoe. Scrit-it, scratch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes and waited. But presently, as nothing happened, he grew bolder. He came out and climbed upon a wooden wheelbarrow, peeping over the edge. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him, gleaming in the distance, was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as his tired legs would carry him. He ran along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes, the wind whistling past his ears. Mr. McGregor caught a glimpse of him at the corner, but Peter did not care for rakes or shouts any more. He slipped underneath the gate like a shadow and was safe at last in the deep, dark wood outside the garden walls. Peter never stopped running, nor did he look behind him, until he reached the towering shadow of the big fir-tree. He was so exhausted that he flopped down upon the nice, soft, warm sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy at the stove, the smell of wood smoke and herbs filling the burrow. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and the second pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a single fortnight. But there was no anger in the burrow on this golden evening. There was only the quiet, profound relief of a family reunited under the roots of the world. Peter was not very well during the evening, his adventures having taken a toll on his small frame. His mother put him to bed with gentle hands, not as a punishment for his wandering, but as an act of grace and protection. She brewed a special pot of chamomile tea. The steam rose in the golden light of the burrow, carrying the scent of dried flowers, safety, and home. 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime, she whispered, stroking his long ears until his breathing became slow and deep. As Peter sipped the warm floral tea, he finally understood. The garden was a place of excitement and bright emeralds, but the burrow was the place of the heart. Courage had taken him to the gate, and curiosity had led him through it, but it was the love of his mother and the safety of the Fir-Tree that had brought him home. Outside, Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail finished their supper of bread and milk and blackberries. They ate slowly, enjoying the peace of the evening in the perfect golden silence of the woods. Thank you for listening to this beautiful tale. I hope Peter's journey has brought a sense of peace to your heart tonight. For more audiobooks for preschoolers or 3-year-olds, stay on our channel and explore our other golden stories. Sleep well, little ones, and remember, there is always a safe way home. Goodbye for now.